I recently read a person saying that the best gift you can give your kids right now is buying a home. And then I think last year, the number came out that the amount of homes sold, 18% of those were as an investment, whether it be a secondary home, a short-term rental, or an institutional buyer coming in and buying neighborhoods or buying rentals to rent out. And those products really, they'll never be back on the market, more likely. Hey everybody, it's Joshua Klein, and today I get the privilege to be with Matt Hunter from Assurance Financial Group. So Matt, thank you for being here with us.
You're welcome.
So glad.
It's great to see you.
Yes, so fun fact is we actually started videoing way back 2+ years ago, and Matt was like our first guest ever on our original show we did. We were just kind of chit-chatting that about beforehand. So Matt, thank you for being here. Tell the people at home who you are.
Sure.
And a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Matt Hunter. I'm with Assurance Financial. We used to be Hunter Mortgage. Hunter Mortgage was started by my mom back in the early 90s. And I was an engineer out of the site. So I was a young engineer, and we wanted to change the world as a young engineer, you know, and so you want to do things. I got so much pushback that really felt kind of the glass ceiling and wanted to do something different. I'm not your typical engineer. I'm much more personable than a typical engineer, and this really suits me. So being in the mortgage, being front-facing, being able to interact with clients really fills a need inside me.
Like that.
And I really enjoy it. And I've been doing it for about 22 years now, which seems crazy. I'm married 31 years this year. Got 2 grown boys. They're out of the house finally.
And like it.
Yeah, it's great.
So mom started the business in the 90s. How, it was in your blood almost in some ways.
Yeah.
So what made you make the switch overall to, I mean, it's a leap of faith, because I mean, as mortgages is commission-based, you're going that way to something that's gonna be steady, your growth should be good, and in the next few years you'll make more money, that kind of scenario, engineering. So how was that switching it back then in the 90s?
So the switch over was really kind of organic.
Okay.
You know, I didn't feel a whole lot. I was in a position where I could do as little or as much as I wanted.
Okay.
And realistically, when I started, it was very part-time. I was at home helping take care of the kids after we left the site. So it was one of those things where, you know, a couple days a week or, you know, here or there. Then we hit a refinance boom back in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And they really needed help. So the 2 days turned into 3, then 4, then 5, and all of a sudden I'm doing it full time. So like I said, it was really organic. It just kind of grew and never put a lot of thought into it. I just did what I did, and the business started to blossom.
I love it. So many things in life happen that way naturally, right? Just kind of let the ebbs and flows happen. So you've been around the business for 20+ years, and we have seen different cycles, everything from, you talk about the refinance boom back then to the
housing crash,
to the lowest interest rates in the world, to now this cycle of one of the quickest spikes in a while. So talk to us about how are you dealing with that on the mortgage side and educating people on that?
So what I'm telling my clients is you're marrying the house. So the house is what you want. The rate is temporary. So you're really dating the rate. The forecast is that we're going to be in a recession in the next 12 months. So even though we've seen rates climb, we're going to see them go back down. And so you're not going to be able to buy that home for any cheaper than you are right now. So buy the house that you want. The rate's going to be temporary. So it may be a temporary 12 months where you have to deal with this high rate, but then we're going to refinance you into a much lower rate. They're talking about rates maybe being 2 points lower in the next 12 months.
It's huge.
It is huge, and that's hundreds of dollars a month in mortgage payments that it can go down. And so look for the house, buy it now, because you buy a home, let's say it's a $300,000 home today, next year was probably $350,000. Well, that means then you need to bring more money to the table for the down payment. You're going to be financing more of a loan amount, and when that rate drops, your mortgage payment isn't going to be that much different. So if you can get in now at that lower price, you've got to go for it.
I tell people all the time, it's the perfect time is now.
That's right.
I mean, you prolong anything in life, it's a little bit, it always backfires typically on you. So go now for your dreams. So let's talk about Assurance Financial. Y'all are 100 mortgage for
a long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
Great family company. Personally, I've dealt with them numerous times with myself financially and our clients. But the big switch.
Yeah, the big switch.
So same great people, same great faces, same customer service. So tell us a little bit about the switch on y'all's side as a group. And then I want to dig a little bit about how did that conversation really kind of start for a business owner that might be looking for maybe a buyout or to switch something up but keep the same kind of thing going.
Sure. So we kept the same people, but it was kind of time for my parents to be able to step back. And for me to be able to take on all of the responsibilities, I needed some backing.
Yeah.
And so Assurance Financial, again, it was something that just came about through conversations.
Yeah.
My wife had a friend whose husband was part of Assurance Financial in Columbia. We started to talk. And the advantages that I saw with being a part of a company where for so long we were kind of lone wolf.
Yeah.
You know, we were a mortgage broker. And so we would take that loan and we would send it to a company to underwrite, to close. And there was a real lack of control from our side. You know, if I needed to get a disclosure sent out so that we were able to close on time or do something that you know, we needed to get done like right away, I had no control over that company. And so it was a fight sometimes to get loans closed, whereas with Assurance Financial, we're all part of the same team. So everything is in-house. All our underwriters are in-house. Our appraisal board is small, so we know the quality of the appraisals that we're going to get.
Good.
We have control from start to finish. So when those disclosures are initially sent out, down to when the closing disclosure can be sent out. And so that has been a huge advantage. Add in the technology. So as Hunter Mortgage, you know, we're a small company. Trying to gain advantage in technology space is difficult because we just didn't have the ability to invest in
the
things
capital on those programs are just unreal.
Yeah, and so, you know, we can do hybrid closings now.
That's awesome.
Where people can sign a majority of their disclosures that they'd sign typically at the closing table in advance. It allows them to sit and really focus on the important things, the note and the mortgage and the closing disclosure, and they can focus on that. And then they're not having to be overwhelmed. So many times things get lost at that closing because paper's just being shuffled back and forth. And there's not really time to grasp onto important things like applying for your residential tax.
100%.
You know, all the things that kind of got lost in translation are now brought to the forefront where people can hear them and catch on to it and things not get put to the side.
So I mean, it's a client decision, really, what it came down to.
Yeah.
So on the business owner side of it, you get started in the business, Mom does years ago. Exit strategy is always a conversation as a business owner. How do I exit the business? So I'm not sure if your mom back then was talking about the exit strategy, but in kind of this way, this is an exit strategy for them in some ways, right?
Sure. I mean, she told me for the past 10 years she needed to retire.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, here's your chance. And, you know, it's been a good switch over.
That's good.
So we really didn't miss a beat. We kept Margot, our secretary, you know, Margot.
Amazing.
Everybody compliments Margot. Just, you know, she's the first face that you hit or the first voice that you hear. And we brought on my loan officer assistant who's now licensed. She can originate mortgages, but she's been a great asset. And so she has jumped in and she nails it every time.
I love it. So we spoke about your mom a little bit, but it's not just your mom now.
Yeah.
So tell us who else has joined the business.
So my wife has joined the business.
Love it.
She is a physician by training, and she said, look, I'll help you build the business. And so she's come on board as a loan officer. She's really been handling a lot of our construction of permanent loans. And she's been killing it. I mean, to come from where she was to where she is now as a loan officer is just astounding. And it happened in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
To say that she's a quick learner is an understatement.
That's awesome.
But it's been great to have that, because for so long, I'd get home and I'd complain about loans, and she's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. So now she understands, some of the frustration. She can share it. She can add ideas on, how to get past it.
Yeah.
And it's been a really good thing for our relationship. After 31 years, we've kind of figured each other out and now know how to work with each other, because early part of our marriage, I would have never thought that I'd be able to work with my wife.
That's interesting you say that, because, we all come home and talk about our life, what's going on at work, and a lot of times it is the frustrations that we speak about, but we hold back some of the good news because we want to just vent and get it out. So now she gets to see not only, hey, I need to vent and get it out, baby, but also now I need to get to celebrate all the wins and successes with you. That's so great. And then also, just knowing that you're doing a career for so long and able to make that switch to something different is truly showing you how long life is, and that you're not married to one career. So if you're willing to make the jump and want to put the effort into it, it's not easy, but it's definitely doable. And you can succeed all day long. So kudos to her. And awesome that y'all working together.
Yeah.
I love it. I grew up in a family business, been basically part of a lot of family business throughout my whole life. This is your whole family. So how are y'all separating as much as possible? For those who own family business or been part of the understanding, they kind of marry itself all the time. Mm-hmm. How did y'all separate mom and son, the whole family? How did y'all separate sometimes the work, not 24/7?
Right. And that can be a challenge, because it was so long a part of our lives that we still talk business, and she's not involved as day to day. But like, for an example, we're doing a loan for a past client's daughter.
Yeah.
And so, there's still that continuity, and she still knows people around town. Say, hey, I hear you're financing for X. Mm-hmm. And we're like, yeah, it's going great. We've got them approved. We're ready to close. So she's still, got that where we're still talking some business, but it's not as deep in detail as what it was in the past. And so it allows us to focus on our granddogs, her granddogs, my dogs, our kids. So it's freed up some communication between us where we're able to talk about other things now, where it's not all just business.
Yeah, and it's the hardest thing when you own your business. Is like you want it to be successful because you want to give more back, but there's a part about living and giving each other life and speaking into each other and learning about what they want to do. So I know now with Assurance, y'all have a lot more loan opportunities. So how about you tell us, everybody who's watching, what loan opportunities you have now? So
that was one of the big advantages. As a mortgage broker, we were kind of put into a box of purchase or refinance. And so there's a lot of loan programs that we didn't have access to. So we now have construction or permanent loans. We've got renovation loans. So if somebody finds a home not quite where they want it to be, they can build in costs to renovate the home to bring it up to what they want.
So let's give an example of that, because that's really big. So you're having older homes that have been sitting and built in the 60s, 70s, even 80s. They haven't been touched in that many years. So we're buying a home for $300,000. We know we're going to put $100,000 to get it to the modern day standards. What's that look like for the borrower there?
So what they do is they basically get a contract on that house. They get a contractor to come in and say, okay, here's the list of things that you want to do to it. Here's what the costs are going to be. The down payment would be based off of whatever the completed cost is. And then that money is kind of fun. It's like sort of a mini construction or permanent loan.
Wow, that's great.
And so it's one of those programs where it's specialized. We have someone on staff that's all that he does is the renovation product.
Wow.
And so we can set up Zoom meetings with him for clients so that they can get a lay of, okay, this is what I need to do in order to make this happen. Okay. He's actually coming in a couple weeks. So if you want to have him come in and talk to your realtors,
Plug to learn. I love a good plug to go.
Be happy to do that. We're now able to do things like a piggyback loan. Piggyback loans were big back before the mortgage crisis, where somebody wanted to avoid private mortgage insurance, and so they would get a first mortgage for 80%. They get a second mortgage for whatever the remainder was. That was a home equity line of credit or a home equity loan, and they could avoid PMI. We can do that now, where we weren't able to.
I know one of the biggest myths out there is how much you have to put down on a house.
Right.
So what are you seeing most people put down? Because it's not, you have to put down 20-25% on a loan. You can get some loans at really
USDA, 100% financing.
Correct.
Great loan program. VA is the same way. FHA is a 3.5% down payment. You can get into a conventional loan with 5%.
It's amazing.
Sometimes as little as 3%, but that's really first-time home buyers, and they really have to be well qualified for that program to make sense to do that over another program. And that's one of the things that we do is we sit down with clients and try to find out what their needs are.
I love it.
What do they have as far as assets to be able to bring into the equation? What program is going to work out best for them? And sometimes we'll do an analysis on all those programs and say, look, okay,
I've seen you do it.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you sit down and look at it that you don't have to put yourself in a box to be only one type of loan when you go into the picture, because you sit down with somebody like Matt, he's going to tell you, hey, you thought that USDA is where you want to go, but truly we can get you conventional and this will save you money in the long term, or a refinance or whatever kind of special programs you have there. So right now we're in late 2022, beginning of the year, we were roughly around the 3% area in the rates. We're pushing 6-ish. We've seen some 7s come across the board. So the biggest question is, I get, is the market going to crash? The answer right now is 100% no, it's not going to crash. There's an inventory issue still today that is happening. We need more houses, especially in our market here. I read a stat recently that we need as much as 26,000 more homes to be built in our CSRA than we currently have. So inventory is the issue. We can't build them fast enough. But with rates, it does slow down your buyers a little bit.
Sure.
So what is the forecast you're seeing going into 2023 on the forecast of where rates should go?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we really anticipate being in that recession. The typical thing that happens during a recession is that interest rates will drop. It creates a refinance boom. That refinance boom kind of kickstarts the economy and gets us to a better place, and we'll be out of the recession.
Correct.
So what they're talking about is rates going down maybe as much as 2%.
That's huge.
So it would be a huge advantage to buy the home at this price, and being able to suck it up for a couple months, maybe up to a year at a higher rate, but then refinance into something that's going to save you hundreds of dollars a month.
So so you're telling people right now, again, that $300,000 home a year ago was costing the average buyer on a conventional loan, what, $1,500, $1,600 a month, roughly somewhere in that price point. Now they're costing roughly
$2,300.
Yeah, so you have about a $700 difference, we'll call it, on that. You're getting the price still at a better price. And honestly, we're getting some people discounts right now too as well, and closing costs are getting paid for again in the market, which before, closing costs, you're overbidding on houses, that was the norm.
Yes.
And a lot of it was, don't second guess your home inspections. You don't have time to do a home inspection. You're buying the house as is. So now we're getting back into a reality of a market that I'm going to do my home inspection. I can get pipes and closing costs involved in it, but I do have a higher interest rate. Yeah. But what you're telling people is like, listen, do it for a little bit. You're getting a great deal on the house. Let the appreciation still happen on the house. It's still going to grow. We might not grow at 25% like we had the last 2 years. We're going to grow at probably 7-8% this year when it all comes said and done. But then you can refinance out. So how's the refinance process look for somebody who is getting that 7% rate right now, or 6.5%?
Sure. The refinance is fairly straightforward. If they had an appraisal on the house, probably won't need another appraisal. So you're going to see some cost savings there. We're going to save the money from our side. If it's a client that we're refinancing, we'll cut some costs. Attorney fees are going to be less. Essentially, all they really need to do is rebuild their escrow account. So closing costs are going to be much lower than what they are to purchase the home initially, which is great. You'd mentioned about, people are concerned about a crisis and another crash like we saw back in 2008. But if you look at the economic indicators, they're just not there.
Yeah.
You know, the things that were happening in 2008 were so dramatically different than what we see now. There's so many regulations that have been put in place that are really meant to prevent that from happening again. And it does look like it's working.
Yeah.
If you look at the foreclosure rates, foreclosures back in 2008, they were up in the millions for the year. Last year, they were like 146,000. So it's so dramatically different. Even though we're seeing, and there's a lot of panic because people listen to the news, that we're in this mortgage headed to a crisis again, it's really not.
Yeah.
So we don't see any of that. I still feel like, you know, real estate's a solid investment.
100%. I mean, I've seen people buy houses 2-3 years ago and just cash in $100,000 of equity by selling the house. I love my stock people out there who manage money, but I don't know anybody else making $100,000, and that's the point in time on a $200,000 investment. It's just not happening. So right now in real estate, on top of like the rates, where we go in the market is you talk to more and more people. Everybody wants an investment house. Everybody wants to have some kind of rental to make the money because they saw the progress of people doing it. So what are you telling people get into the market for investing? How does that look for you all on the mortgage side?
So, you know, it's still a good time to buy real estate and that investment property. We could actually do a renovation loan on investment property.
Love it.
So, you know, if you find a home that's really in kind of shambles and want to bring it up to a point where you're able to rent it out, you know, we can do that. But it's still a good time to buy investment property because people are in such transition. You know, they've sold their house, they need someplace to stay, they can't find the house they want to buy because of the low inventory. You know, it's still a great time to have that in your back pocket where you've got this home that can be rented out and it's an income stream that you'll have potentially forever. And, you know, rates are going to be higher on investment property. It's just, it is what it is. It's always that way. It's a higher risk product for lenders because, you know, when hard times hit, people are more willing to keep the roof over their own head, so their primary residence, than they are an investment property. And so you're always going to see higher rates on it, but the rates aren't horrible, okay? You know, you may be a point and a half higher than what they are on it being your primary residence.
And reality is you're basically passing that as an investor. I mean, you're passing it off to your renter or if you're doing a short-term rental, Airbnb, you're passing that cost off.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know, and you can speak to what rental costs for somebody that's a renter are, you know, rents have been just going up and up and up.
Correct.
And so if you can maybe talk about that.
I mean, so right now you're really in the situation as a buyer of, if you have the money, I always would encourage you to buy a home. But if you're in a situation that you're moving here for short term or whatever that looks like for you and you want to rent, you're going to pay a premium price right now. Homes that used to be the $700-800 range now are costing $1,200-1,300 a month. The homes that a family used to rent that needed a 2 kids and a wife and a husband, their people now are paying $1,800 to $2,400 a month to have that same exact house they were before. A lot of that is because, I mean, you do have a higher interest rate when it comes to these people, but also the market is demanding that right now for rentals. I mean, it just comes down to supply and demand. I mean, it's all it comes down to. But it is truly one of the best investments. I recently read a person saying that the best gift you can give your kids right now is buying a home. And then I think last year, the number came out that the amount of homes sold, 18% of those were as an investment, whether it be a secondary home, a short-term rental, or an institutional buyer coming in and buying neighborhoods or buying rentals to rent out. And those products really, they'll never be back on the market, more likely. We can't predict the future, but those inventory is gone. So again, just more indicators that showing that this housing crisis that people want to say is coming, it's not here.
No.
So one of our biggest things we love is giving back to the community. I know Hunter Mortgage and now Insurance Financial is huge in giving to the community. So if you want to talk about what y'all involvement is on the community aspect of here in town.
Sure. So, you know, one of the big things we just finished out with was a campaign for St. Jude's. And we did an Apps for Kids. So every app that we got in September, we contributed $50.
Beautiful.
So, you know, St. Jude's is a big thing company-wide. Locally, there are 503Cs that we support locally, where we're trying to give back. From my standpoint, one of the things that I love is those first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
Getting to have a relationship with somebody that never thought that they could buy a home.
Yeah.
And getting them to that point of building a homeowner is really satisfying for me.
Love it. I love it. Now, one of my favorite things is you get to tell people how to reach you, your phone number, any other contact, so they can get in contact with you and learn all the great things that you've honestly personally taught me throughout the years. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, you can feel free to visit us. We're at 408 Silver Bluff Road, across the street from Panda Express and Academy Sports. You can call us at 803-644-4010. My cell phone number is 803-634-0605. And my email address is mhunter@assurancemortgage.com.
And we'll plug all that on the video as well and in the notes on the comments. So Matt, it's always a privilege and a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.